going through when my husband died in 1987, and then my journey to healing, and then having done training in energy healing, to all the people that I've helped overcome loss during that time. And every time I had a consultation with someone, whatever the story was I was saying to them, I think, this is not something that I should just be saying to one person. Everybody should know about this, because this is information that will help everybody deal with loss, and understand how things kind of work, and how your body reacts, and what goes on in your body when you suffer a loss, when you experience a loss. And so eventually, because of this kind of funny story, because I've suffered loss, and every time I've told the story, people, because I went to a psychic medium, and that changed my life. To me, the best psychics are the psychic mediums, because they can put everything to rest of why things happen as they did, building up to the death. Because there always is things, and then you can't quite understand why things happen as they do. And so I was searching for someone in Cape Town, because in Durban I know everybody relating to this kind of thing. I've been down here 11 years, and I still haven't connected with all the psychic mediums that are in Cape Town. And every time somebody said to me, oh, you should go and see this woman, I thought, well, maybe this will be the one that I can refer people to, but it never was. A lot of them didn't even pick up I'd lost a husband. So I definitely wasn't going to refer someone unless I was convinced about it. And then there's an amazing young girl in Helderberg. No, it's not called Helder, it's called Helder something else. It's by Somerset West.
Helderberg Village.
Helderview? What's it?
Helderberg Village.
Okay, well it's in the direction of Somerset West. And somebody said, you really need to go and see her, and but if you want to make an appointment, you're going to wait 6 months. So that got my attention, and so it took 7 months for me to see her. But when I went to see her, she was spot on. She told me every single person who had died, everybody I'd lost and how they died. She didn't give names, but she could give me that I could work out exactly who she was talking about. And then she said, and she's a very quiet-spoken girl. And then she said, okay, now you guys want to talk, so all the people have to stand back. And then she said, you need to write that damn book already. And she said, I'm really sorry, but they said I need to say that because you're not paying attention. So, and I got the title of the book a long time ago. I'd actually got the title of the series a long time ago called Spiritual Chat on Practical Matters, because my whole life has been speaking spiritual truths in the way that people can understand in ordinary language, instead of big metaphysical terms that people don't really understand what we're talking about. And so when I got Spiritual Chat on Death and the Loss of a Loved One, I didn't really understand the title, because I thought, what is the death, the loss of a loved one? I didn't quite get what that was, until I got divorced in 2009. And I realized, oh my goodness, that is a loss that is like a death. I mean, one experiences it like a personal death. So each time we have a major event happening in our life that changes our reality moving forward, our body takes that as a personal death. Because it thinks, oh my God, this must be death, because life as I know it is never going to be the same again. So you're not imagining it when you're going through the trauma. It is as if you are going through a personal death. So, and then of course I thought of things like, well, you know, when someone gives a child up for adoption, they beat themselves up like anything, because the 30 or 40-year-old is thinking, how could I be so stupid at 16 or 17, which is not really fair, where all the adults would have been pressurizing you to do something. The same with abortion. Everybody was doing the best that they could and the best that they knew at that time. If it wasn't meant to be in that particular way, I promise you it wouldn't have been. I really believe that there's a far bigger plan going on, that besides the fact of our interaction with each other, we set up how we want our life to be. There's a thing called soul contracts, which is the only thing that makes sense to me. Probably the two biggest things that make sense to me about life, otherwise I think I would have checked out a long time ago, is that there are soul contracts, which means we agree to do things and have this experience of life with different players, doing the things that they need to do for what experience we both need to have. So it's a two-way road. And even the ones that do the bad things to you, in fact, especially the ones that do the bad things to you. And then also the reincarnation thing, because I believe that God is a God of love. So I don't believe that someone born in Khayelitsha and someone born in Buckingham Palace, that God chose for that to happen. We decide what kind of experience we'd like to have in life. So we choose the people that will make that happen and the environment that will work best for that. Some of the most amazing people come out of the most difficult situations. And I think maybe sometimes we set it up because maybe in past experiences and past lives or whatever, we died for something particular, or we were particularly judgmental of something, so we decide, well, we're going to come back and feel what it feels like to be that particular role. And so that's why those experiences happen. If you think reincarnation is not a possibility, you just have to look at a child who has more compassion in his baby toe than a grown-up who's 90. You know, there's got to be, why would there be a difference? How can a young soul seem so advanced, a young child seem so advanced in understanding and compassionate about things that they haven't got life experience to understand? So, if it wasn't for those two things, then this is a terrible case, because it just wouldn't look right for me at all. So, what happened was, I grew up with my grandmother, who was a student of metaphysics long before it was the accepted thing. And so I was born in 1961, so the fact that she was already a student of metaphysics, I think they were still burning him at the stake back in those days, because that was really early days. So, and I believed in things like reincarnation and life after death. I remember watching some DVDs that were on near-death experiences and people's experiences when they came back of what they'd seen, and people that were communicating from the other side. Because I'd read the book on the death of my son, which is now called Heaven's Gift by Jasper Swain, which is the story of a Maritzburg family. And it was quite interesting because when my husband died, and then of course all my beliefs that were here, like reincarnation sounds great, all that, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I need proof. It's not good enough just to think that's how it works, I need to know that's how it works. And so a girl came to me that I worked with in Telkom. Now, her child and her daughter and my son are almost the same age. When she had a child, her first child was a special needs child, so actually needed to be in 24-hour care all the time, never ever stayed at home with her. So she would go visit the daughter every single time, and every single day. So when she was 7 months pregnant with the second baby, the first baby died. So I didn't know, because people weren't talking about those things back then, I didn't know, because that was 1985, that she had gone to a psychic medium. But when Ian passed, she came to me, she said, Allison, I cannot emphasize enough, you need to go and see a psychic medium. It put this and this and this to it, it's explained why things happened as it did, and explained how things unfolded. So I thought, well, I'm very skeptical. I'm not sure that that's even, I knew people had the gift, but I wasn't sure about how it worked exactly. I didn't want someone that was reading my mind or something. I needed to know for sure. And so I just decided, well, it's got to be the woman from the book on the death of my son. Now, you've got to understand, that book was written in 1968. My husband died on the 31st of December 1987. So this is now January 1988, and I have no clue whether this woman is still alive or dead, or how old she was at the time. So the series of synchronicities that happened were mind-blowing. So I worked in Telkom. And I thought, well, let me try and phone, because I know that Jasper Swain was a judge. So I phoned Whitehead Buildings in Durban. I'm originally from Durban. I've only been here 11 years. Only been here. That's a long time. And so I phoned Whitehead Buildings and they said, oh no, sorry, Judge Swain is sick today. Here's his home number. Who gives a judge's home number? So I phone and I speak to the mom, Martha's mom. The book is written about the son, Mike. And I speak to the mom and I said to her, well, this is what's happened, and I've just lost my husband and I'd really like to get hold of the woman in the book. And then I said, so do you still communicate with Mike? And she said, oh no, my dear, you will see that once all the things are put to rest, you don't feel that need to communicate with them all the time. So I thought, I'm not so sure about that, because surely you're never that satisfied. And then she said, oh no, she was only, the cycle was only 48 time. Sorry, she was 28 at the time, so she was now 48. So she said, but I know she's still down the south coast, but I've lost contact with her. So I look it up in the telephone directory, it's an unlisted number clearly. Now I worked on Extreme North and South Coast records, and I was one of those stickler, pain in the butt, it's got to be done in a particular way. The job's being done, it must be done properly. Unless it's a medical doctor that's being installed, nothing gets done out of turn. No favors, no nothing, because it's just not supposed to be done that way. And I was in charge of the section. So I phoned this lady, Daphne, who was in charge of the South Coast section. Now, she was really a grumpy lady. So I phoned her and I said, Daphne, do you know Nan Merrington? She said, oh yes, everybody knows her here. That's a really good person for you to speak to because she knew that I lost my husband. So I said, but I presume her number's unlisted. She said, yes, it is unlisted, and I knew she wouldn't give it to me either. So I said, so how would I get it? She said, no problem, her son's number's not unlisted. So I phoned the son, the daughter-in-law answered the phone, and she said, oh, here's the number. I phoned, the maid says, oh, sorry, because now I'm in the centre of Durban, they're in Ilova. And so she says, oh no, the madam's at work. So I said, oh, well, where's work? 2 blocks away from me. From 2 hours before, thinking, I don't know if this woman's alive or dead, but I need to speak to this woman, I'm now sitting in front of her within 2 hours. I mean, it was really mind-blowing. And then I still sat there thinking, I'm not going to give anything away. She has to tell me everything. I'm not going to, we really can be silly sometimes, and that can sometimes block things. But the one thing that convinced me was, because my husband died in a work accident. They were putting on a new substation and he was in the equipment. And so she said to me, do you know how the accident happened? So I said, no, I don't know. So she describes it to me. She said, can you phone anybody to find out? I phoned his engineer. And I didn't say that I was busy with the South medium, because even in 1988, that was still weird, you know. So I said, can you please explain the equipment that he was working in? And he told me exactly about the 3 prods and this and this. So when I went back to her, it was already what she had told me. So then I knew, okay, this woman is for real. But I mean, there were certain things, like psychic amnesia is a very real thing. You know, because people say, oh, the John Edwards, this John Edwards, the John Edwards thing is all put on, and Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium is, and I say, no, it's not. I remember the one time when they were saying, he calls it psychic amnesia, when they say to someone, so does the name, I'm just going to say Rumpelstiltskin, does the name Rumpelstiltskin mean anything to you? Now there are 9 members of this family there, and nobody can work out what it is. Nobody. And then the people just, he said, well, it's not going any further, you have to work out what it is. And after about 5 minutes, somebody says, oh, that was her maiden name. How did they not know, if it's such an unusual name, that was her maiden name? But why I know that was genuine, because I had that experience where she said to me, so he's talking about this joke, and it's some joke about something, and I said, I really don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. But I only told one joke. I mean, there was only one joke, and it was to do with fishing, and I'm not going to demonstrate that to you because it's not nice. It's really funny though, but it's not appropriate to share. But I did not put one and one together in the moment. It was only after she was pushing like, no, he wants you to remember that. Because I had put it out there, I want to make sure that I know this is for real and that this is not, it's not fake. So she explained all the things that had led up to the accident, why things happened as they did. I mean, one of the things that was quite amazing was he only had time off work, or we only had time off work in December. And yet he insisted, we had bought a house in February that year, and there were certain things that I wanted to do, like doing your curtains, and you get your bonus in January and in December and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do things, and he said, no, we'll do it in January. We'll do it in January. And she said, so you're aware when he was saying, wait till January, it's because he knew he wouldn't be around then, because he died on the 31st of December. He was saying do it in the new year. And anything that would have been new at that point, I wouldn't have been able to look at, because it would have been a reminder of the fact of his loss, instead of starting anew on my own. So the journey from there was quite amazing because I was very aware of, and it seemed also like everybody that was young was losing a loved one. I mean, young people were dying left, right, and centre, but I think I was just in the vibrational frequency of that because I was able to help people by telling them, listen for signs. If they play music on the radio, because I always used to think, before I'd been to the psychic, why do they have to play this song? I'm feeling bad enough as it is now. Now they have to play our song. But that's how they tell you that they are actually with you. They're not, it's not trying to make you hostile, it's trying to tell you that they can manipulate music. I mean, there were times when I was driving and things were happening with my son, because my son was 2 at the time of my husband's death. And then I'd say, do you know what's happening now? You know? And the next thing I'd switch the radio on and our song would be playing. I mean, it's not the only song that was playing on East Coast radio. The amount of times it played at all different times to give me a sign, it doesn't make logical sense that the song would play at that time. And so then I realized that with loss, you have to, one thing, you have to deal with the grief at the time of the loss. Because if you allow it to go under, if you don't deal with it, it has not gone away. Trust me, it is there, but it's now just playing in the background. And your energy is at a low vibration because of the grief. Because that's the other thing, they can't really connect with you because you are so engrossed in the grief that they can't get through to you even if they're screaming on top of their lungs. You know, they're throwing all the signs at you, and because you are looking down and absorbed in the loss, you're actually missing all the stuff that they are able to communicate to you. Now the grief doesn't go away, so it goes under the surface, okay? But you don't notice that the sun is shining or it's not shining. You don't notice if it's a miserable day or if it's a good day. So your whole demeanor changes of your life experience. And for some people, their life stops dead at that point. I've seen people in their 60s and they lost their father when they were 5, and yet when they talk about it, they are as emotional as if it had just happened today. I'll explain why that happens like that. So what happens is in my case as well, I mean, I had to be brave. Ian's family completely lost the plot. My family lost the plot. I had my son to work out how I was going to tell him, and there was so much stuff that I had to suck it up. I had to be able to handle everything, thinking I'll deal with it later. Not realizing that, how do you access it later? The only time you access it later is when you have the next loss. Do you deal with that one? No. So that one also goes under. So all the stuff goes under the carpet, and then the one day you hear of your neighbor's friend's brother's sister that's in Canada, and their neighbor's dog died, and you lose the plot completely. Totally irrational, totally doesn't make any sense at all, but it's because something in there triggered all of that. Now our subconscious mind is an amazing thing. In fact, the fact that we as human beings can put one foot in front of the other is mind-blowing. If you think of all the stuff that we all experience, and don't think the ones that look the most together have had no bad experience. They just know how to pull it off that way. Everybody, I've been in my own practice since 2002, which is 15 years now. And the ones that look the most together, I wouldn't swap their story for anything. I'm quite happy with what I live in my life. So we all go through stuff that we have to deal with, and our subconscious mind is the one thing that keeps us alive. It keeps us breathing, and it keeps our hearts beating. But every time something is, we have a bad experience, a loss or something, it goes into the lost folder, okay? And so you have another loss, whether it's an animal or divorce or something, that goes in the same folder. And so each time something else happens, that whole folder gets open. So each time it's worse and worse, so it takes more effort to bury it instead of just dealing with it, okay? Then the subconscious mind is thinking, I'm keeping you alive. That's why I'm making sure that if anything's happening, and the other thing too, it blocks you from getting involved again. Or if you do get involved with a new person, it keeps a safe enough distance so that you don't have to get hurt like that again. I think I was with my next partner about 9 years or 7 years or something, and I realized, oh my gosh, in 9 years I had not put myself fully in the relationship like I had for the 5 years that I was with my first husband, because my body was on high alert of don't ever want to get caught like that again. And I didn't even realize it until I was giving someone an Orasoma reading, and the one bottle was a bottle that always, this is color therapy, it always kind of, I couldn't get the reading clearly of what it meant. Meantime, it was a loss that had never been dealt with, and her story was also, her child had died when her husband was 2. She'd been in the relationship with a new husband for 7 years, so it would have been 7 years, because the parallels of the two things, I wouldn't have put one and one together if the story wasn't so. And so I was saying to her, so how involved are you in this? How committed are you in the relationship? And then I said to her, oh, hold on a second, I just realized something, and that's when it dawned for me. So a loss can affect every single area of your life. It doesn't just impact, it's not just the grief that you are dealing with. It protects you from any further shocks or traumas. The sad thing is that if a family loses a child, then the partners, not all, the mom and dad won't deal with it in the same way. And so they become absent, okay, because they're not dealing with the loss. So instead of the children just having lost a sibling, they've lost their parents and the sibling. Or the partners haven't only lost the sibling, they now have also lost each other. So we don't realize the impact of how loss affects everybody in every way. So when it comes to things like adoption, abortion, I really believe that, there's enough stories around of people who tried to abort a baby, and in spite of all that they did, that baby was born. And then you get others where the person just sneezed and they lost the baby. But I really believe that the soul only comes in long enough for the time frame it needed. And very often, when the person falls pregnant again, that soul can come through. So it may be that the soul doesn't need to come through, but if the soul does come through, it'll probably come through as a second or third child if it wasn't born at the time. So that's what I believe. That's what makes sense to me. And I've heard enough stories of people saying, well, the same feeling that I got with my first pregnancy, connecting with that baby that I lost, I get that same feeling with my second child. And I say, well, that can't be an imaginary thing. There must be a real connection energetically in that way. Otherwise, you wouldn't recognize the child in that way. And so to beat yourself up when you're now in your 30s or 40s for having had an abortion or given a child up for adoption is not fair on you. And the truth is that the soul contract, why I can be so clear about the fact of my understanding. I grew up with my grandma. I was born when she was 45. And I grew up with her as my mom until I was 19. Back in the 60s, if the girl fell pregnant and she was 17, then the baby became her sister. And, so everybody knew who I was, but I only found out when I was 19. And so I did not have a connection with my mother. She was always kept away from the family, and the way she'd get back at my gran would be to keep her kids away, which I thought were my nieces and nephews. But so she would continually have this thing. So there is no connection between us. And as much as she causes havoc with the rest of my siblings, they said, you're so lucky because there's no emotional hook. You don't react. I said, because there is no emotional hook. So I know I was never meant to grow up in that household. I was meant to grow up with my gran. So if souls choose a particular way, I couldn't have been born through my gran. At 45, in those days, you couldn't have children when they were that old. There would be something wrong with the child if you could even fall pregnant. So I was meant to come through and be with her because she was my first spiritual teacher. With all the work that I do, everything that I am is about spirituality, making a difference. That's my normal. Okay, so I would never have got that if I grew up in my biological household. So we really have the experience that we are meant to have, and we don't always, and I know it's difficult. I was on the radio the other night, and I know it's difficult because the interviewer was even saying to me, Yeah, but you know, it's difficult to think that you actually chose what you wanted. You know, like, did you choose? Because the lady phoned in who'd lost 3 children. And so I was saying, well, because I was trying to keep normal. You know, I was trying not to talk funny. Because you don't have enough time in an interview to make it make sense, you know. So I said, well, the only thing that makes sense is soul contract. Because she wants to know why she's still here. I mean, clearly she has a story to tell of having survived 3 losses, and there's got to be something special with the person that can handle that level of loss. She must be able to help other people deal with the loss of children, you know, of their children, of their child. So, but I know it's difficult because having grown up the way that we have, with all the spiritual beliefs that we have, the religious beliefs, it's hard to kind of acknowledge the fact of, especially if our lives have been pretty traumatic, and I promise you everybody's lives have been traumatic, just get them speaking for a while. When they say, no, my life has really been good, perfect family, perfect this, perfect that, let them talk for a while. Then you hear about the alcoholic dad, and you know, they've made it good in their head so that they can cope, because that's the other thing that we do. We make some of the huge traumas okay so that we can handle life, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So, the other big loss, as far as I'm concerned, is loss through, like a loss of a pet. And it was very interesting. I think some of the book must be channeled, really, because when I read the book, I wanted to be the first one to read it. That's after reading it 50 times when I was editing and doing everything. But when they actually sent me the copy, I thought, I want to be the first one that reads my book. And I got solace with what I was reading. I was thinking, how did I manage to articulate that in such an amazing way? Clearly, I mean, I had a clear intention that I want people to receive healing just by reading the information. And while I was busy reading, when I was still doing the manuscript, I had lost my first dog in, where are we now, 2017, 16, 15, 2014, my first Dachshund died. The second one died a year later. So the year later was when I was doing all the editing and everything. And I didn't want to read the part about the loss of a pet because the thing was just too raw, and of course the loss of this one had brought up the loss of the other one. So, and then eventually I thought, I've got to read it to make sure that everything is okay. I found peace, because the one thing I'd written there, which must have been inspired, was, they will not go until you are ready. And I mean, that was clearly what the message was. But, okay, so that's all the different kind of losses one can have, and a divorce as well. It was very interesting. When I was working in Telkom when I lost my husband, and I had women come up to me, there were 2 women that said, you don't know how lucky you are, that if he was going to go, then he died, you know? And I was like, are you kidding me? I couldn't actually believe that they said that. I don't know which part of the planet, which part of the cosmos they come from to make a statement like that. So I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, if he's got to go, then it's far better that he died, because he didn't choose to leave and he still loved you. Whereas when you get divorced, they don't love you anymore, and you've got to deal with the pain of still seeing them because you have children in common. And I didn't understand that until I went through a divorce. And I think that a divorce can definitely be on a par with trauma of losing someone, because you're still experiencing the loss like someone has died, except that you're seeing the person all the time. But the trauma in the body is equally as painful. So when I got divorced and my husband moved out of the house, now at that stage my son was already out of the house. So he moved out on the day. That night I started crying. I cried and cried and cried so hard I can't even begin to describe. And all I was thinking was, I chose the divorce. If I want to feel like he's in the house, I just have to put the TV on sport full ball. So what the hell is going on? What is this about? But I realized that somehow that had tapped into all the loss of my grand, all the people that I had lost, every bit of grief that I'd ever experienced had opened up. And I cannot tell you the enormity of what that was. And I was thinking, I'm not taking anything for this. I cannot believe I've been functioning with this amount of emotional pain. So this can go on until it's done. And I remember still thinking, they say in the Bible 6 months for a widow to have overcome the grief or something. So it must be like a 6-month thing that where the pain will stop or whatever. So it was the 10th of April. I was thinking, I just got to wait till the 10th of October. And I remember the 10th of October, I was at, that was when Doreen Virtue was out, and I was at, what's the place called? Anyway, the place where she was here in Cape Town.
CTICC?
No, she was at the place where they have all the ballroom dancing for the kids, for the school matric dancers. I'll get it. Anyway, so Calvin Grove.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh my God, what a wonderful way to celebrate the 6 months being up. But the truth is, for that 6 months, while I was seeing a client, I was fine. While I was doing teaching workshops, I was fine. While I was watching Abraham DVDs until they were coming out of my ears, because I was trying everything, or listening to audiobooks, everything to distract myself, the minute that stopped, I was crying as if I had cried for that very first time. It was the most unbelievable thing. And the only thing I would eventually do is give myself a salt water bath to try and just calm myself down. But I wasn't gonna let that opportunity pass of actually dealing with it. So when people come to me for a consultation to do with loss, I always tell them about all the different things that one can listen out for, all the signs that you get. And I know that a lot of people who don't believe that's possible, if they hear that, they will remember. So even if their spiritual beliefs don't fit in with that, if they have lost someone, they will remember signs that they got that they explained away, thinking, oh, that's just my imagination. Because things like you think you see them and then when you look, you don't. Or you see someone that looks like them, but obviously it's not them. The weirdest thing for me was I used to dream about my husband coming back. You know, I would dream about him being there. And I'm thinking, well, where did you go? What was the whole story about the death? You know, what was that about? And then I'd wake up, but I'd always wake up remembering he was gone. But the worst ones would happen when when I was married. The second time, I was thinking, in the dream, I'm thinking, no, what the hell did I do? What did I do with Kevin? I mean, it was a really real thing. And then I wake up like, thank God, because I would have done all that. Because I still think, so what happens when you get to the other side? And everybody's there. What do we do? Because I've got a few boyfriends that have passed, so it's quite an interesting concept. I'm sure we'll know the answers when we get there. But so one of the things that happened I saw a movie. First of all, I saw the movie Ghost, and I saw it, and it was a nice movie because I like those kind of movies. But it never really did anything for me. It was just a really nice movie. The one movie always I hadn't seen. And yet it was a similar kind of thing where the husband dies and, you know, the boyfriend dies, and then he's told he has to help and come back. And so a couple of things happened. I was writing Christmas cards, and they had a new song playing on the radio. And Radio 5 used to have their new songs playing. They used to present it for the very first time on the first Sunday of the month or whatever. And I didn't hear any of the songs before, and probably none of the songs afterwards, but from the very first note, I heard this song called I'll Be There by Escape Club. Or Breakfast Club. I don't think it's those two. Breakfast Club or Escape. I think it's Escape Club. Every other song of theirs, because I bought the CD, is hard rock. Yet they've got this amazing song about the person singing from the other side saying, "I'll be there," on the wind and on the wave and on the "I'll be there." And it was very interesting because then we went to, because this is now 1991. So we go to Midmar Dam, and we were camping there between Christmas and after Christmas and New Year. And then we came back. While we were there, kids behind were playing that song 5-6 times a day. Now there were no MP3s, there were no CDs and things back then. How did they have that song? So maybe they went to the play, but I think I should be inquired, who's actually playing it, where's the music coming from? Because, no, maybe I shouldn't have. Just as well, because it would be a whole lot more, I wouldn't be able to just play. And the song played every single day for the 10 days that we were there. So we come home on the 2nd of January, and the weather is miserable. So my husband decides to go and hire movies. So he goes and he gets the movie always. And so we watched the movie together. But he'd also done the Fatal Attraction. He also got that as a movie. So I am in the movie. I cannot tell you how I lost the plot. I was howling. It wasn't gentle crying. It was sobbing. How he didn't register that something was going on. He knows I cry in movies, but he never put one and one together. But I also think that sometimes they shielded from knowing what's going on. But he never put one and one together. And so my brain was staying with us at the time. So I went through to the lounge after the movie. But what the movie was about, and this is the movie always that I was not avoiding seeing, just when I'd see it when I see it. And in the movie, it's showing how he would manipulate the music. So the story, you guys see it always. It's with Holly Hunter and Richard Dreyfuss, and it's a story about they fly these biplanes with water in Canada to put out the fires on the mountains and stuff. So he dies one day in one of these, in an accident with the airplane. So he gets told on the other side, sorry, but you have to, first, before you can move on, you have to help another pilot in training. So when he's first helping this guy, he's still in the training school. But of course, he then gets allocated to where Richard Dreyfuss was and falls in love with Holly Hunter. So Richard Dreyfuss is really mad about this. He doesn't want to teach him any more stuff, and he certainly does not want him involved with his girlfriend. So he was doing everything, fiddling with the music, he would lie and hold her all night, that feeling of being held all night. Everything in that movie I had experienced. So for me, it was giving me confirmation from Ian. And at the end of the movie, when it was saying goodbye, when I can't remember how it happened, but he says to her, okay, he's now ready to move on, and that he's letting her be happy in her life. I knew Ian was finally saying that to me. It was an absolutely mind-blowing experience for me. I've seen that movie about 5 times since. It's just like Ghost. I watch it, it's just a nice movie. So I know that was a message to me to say he was now done with interfering and trying to stop anything from happening. So with loss, and I thought I had lots, I believed that if we were to die with them, we would have. If we were meant to not be around and not be with them, then that's how it would have happened. So I knew I was still meant to continue with my life. Okay, I understood that. And I had lots of confirmation and lots of signs about all the different things. And so I was very okay and thought I dealt with the loss. Yes, I missed him and I cried and I had the heart sore thing, clearly not at the level that I should have, but I did have the moments of what I thought was dealing with it. But I thought I was also handling it because I understood the things the way that I did. So 2000, I go to do the Healing Touch training. And these guys came out from America, and I like to do things bullet train. So they came and did one level after the other. And so I'm the world's biggest skeptic, so I question everything. Lucky nobody hears what goes on in my head. How the psychics tune into that, then I feel sorry for them, because there's a lot that goes on in my head. Questioning, I don't know for sure, that just sounds like a lot of rubbish. So it wouldn't be something that you'd say out loud. So on the level 1, they talk about this grief release technique, this little 10-minute technique, and it can clear grief from your energy system. So I said, what do you mean, clear grief from your energy system? Because I didn't understand. I was way out the box as far as metaphysics was concerned, but clearly there was another out the box because I didn't even know about energy and all the other stuff like color therapy and things, crystal healing and stuff. And so they said, no, grief gets locked in your energy system you have your first life's knock and then you normalize, and the next life's knock and you normalize, and the next. So I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Each time we normalize, we think we've gone back to where we were before, but in actual fact, we've normalized here. That's why someone can be buried in one of those, in Saigon or whatever, where they bury them under the ground with just a grid on the top. Your body just normalizes to the circumstances that it's in. That's why someone who's in an abusive relationship, if they are being abused, their body normalizes to the circumstances in order for them to survive. So people looking from the outside explaining, do you realize this? They have no concept of that. And they just have each thing that happens, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and they don't put the things together. When they put the things together, that's when they leave. So people think, why is she so stupid? Can't she see what's going on? They are not aware of it because their body is normalized for survival. Okay. So I didn't quite think that it didn't make sense to me. I didn't really understand it. So, and also that this quick little technique can clear it, just sound a little bit far-fetched for me. But in between level 1 and level 2, because it was the 2 weekends, I bumped into a girl. Now the training is in 2000, and I bumped into a girl who I haven't seen since 1978, since I matriculated. And she says to me, so Allison, do you still get yourself into so much trouble with your giggling? It was like she slapped me through the face with a wet face cloth, because I could not remember when last I laughed hard, let alone, I used to get into so much trouble at school. It didn't matter if the principal said, if something was funny, I lost it. I was completely out of control. So I couldn't remember when last I laughed hard. So now I'm thinking, so have these people got something? Is it possible that I shut something down when Ian died? So I was trying to remember an incident of when something happened where I did laugh. And I remembered a particular incident, and it was where he said to me, it's enough now, pull yourself together, go wash your face. So it was an incident where I was very upset because how could he say that? I didn't know how to switch this thing on and off. But it showed me that I had shut that down. So I knew that from the time he died, I had shut that down. So the next weekend, I went very humbly, tail between my legs to say, I'd like that treatment, please, because it was a big group of people, so not everybody got to receive, but everybody got to practice doing the technique. So it was about 2 days later, I went for coffee with girlfriends that only knew me the previous 3 years, so they didn't know me as someone who even laughed, let alone got hysterical. And I lost the plots in the coffee shop, and they were like, are you okay? I was like, oh my God, I'm back. I'm back. I cannot believe I'm back. That was the defining point for me of, I have to do this for others. Because I had more tools in my toolkit to handle death with my understanding of metaphysics and everything, and yet I couldn't stop the grief from being locked in my energy system. So when I've had people, the stories that I've put in the book are people that I think their loss was so massive, that's why I put their story in the book, and I got their permission to do so. Because I remember seeing this one lady, and because I didn't know whether the healing was done on the bed or how it was achieved. So I said she came to me for an aurosoma reading, and the tears were just brimming over all the time. And I said to her, what is wrong with you? There's nothing in the reading that is emotional, so I don't understand. This is cracking point. And she said, well, I walk around like this all the time. I'm an estate agent. I don't know how to switch this off. So I said to her, well, what is your story? And she said, well, I was adopted at birth, was very close to the adopted dad, but the adopted mom didn't like her, obviously jealous maybe because of the bond with dad. So at 19, she met the love of her life, got engaged, mom split them up. They went their separate ways, got married to other people, were very unhappy, got divorced, got back together again, mom split them up. And then he had an accident where he became a paraplegic, and she helped nurse him, and mom split them up. And so then, and he still said, when in our old age, we're going to be sitting on our stoop in our rocking chair saying, why the hell do we let people interfere in our lives? So this was 2002 that I saw her, and the mom died. First the dad died, and then she had to look after her. And then the mom had died at the beginning of 2000. I was thinking, well, 2001. So I was thinking, well, thank goodness, because now they can be together. He died later that year. me, the enormity of the loss was beyond. I honestly didn't think that what I did with this technique could help. But I said to her, look, I do this technique for grief release, so I think I can help you. Let me know if you want to make an appointment. And she came to me. But now, I've been asking the universe for signs forever. I don't know how many angels, notices, or whatever. I had my finger up because I didn't know there were beings there, but I knew you could ask the universe for signs, and I would demand signs. So I needed to know, first of all, I want to know, is it done on the bed, or is it something that unfolds? I mean, her story is so big, and because when you taught the healing, you are taught, so if there's any healers in the house, this is how you need to do it. When you train to balance the energy field and clear the aura. Set the intention for my highest good, or if you're doing the healing session, I set the intention for their healing for their highest good. So I was thinking, well, that's all very well, but I don't know that anybody else can help this woman, and I might have checked myself out if I had a story that was that bad. That's why you always give them what you can handle. And so I thought, I'm going to get her to think back as far back as she can remember, because the little girl's going to know pretty quickly if her mother doesn't like her. And so she was the first person that I did the session called Chucking the Whole Onion. I had to think of all of the stuff right up to present time. And the whole time I was asking for a sign. I need to know if this is even working, or if it's done on the bed, or if it's something that will unfold over the next days or weeks or months. So a question popped into mind to ask her regarding the boyfriend. And when she was sitting up, I asked her, and she answered me soberly. No crying, and because she was still emotional when she arrived. So I said, oh my God, you're not crying. She said, something major has happened here. Because from 19, I did not think about it or speak about it without being emotional. And she was in her early 40s at that stage. So I knew that was the sign that it was down in the bed. So now 2005, I'm now moving down to Cape Town, and I'm thinking, so what would have happened in her life? Because I changed the way I worked from there. Because I had a group people just think about all this stuff. And so I was wondering, because I thought I might not bump into her again, what impact did it have? And so I went into the center that friends of mine had, and there were lots of other therapists there, and I was saying goodbye to everybody. This is now 2 days before I'm leaving. And a woman comes up to me, and I recognize her, but I can't place her. And it was her. And she said, hi Allison, how are you? I believe my stepson and your son are big mates. So I said, who's your stepson? Because now I'm trying to think, is she part of the, I don't remember, around school? And the boys went from grade 1 to the trip together, although they weren't friends then. Post school, they played old boys rugby, DHS old boys rugby together. And then she said, I came to you once, and that's when I realized who she was. So I burst out crying, gave her a big hug, because I realized, oh my God, she married Carl's dad. So I said, I've been thinking about you because I'm moving down to Cape Town the day after tomorrow. And I want to know what happened with your session. And she said, well, I've been meaning to phone you because you're in my face all the time with seeing Clinton and hearing Carl talking about Clinton. So she said, everything changed after that session. 3 months later, I met Carl's dad, and 6 months later, we were married. Her life completely changed. To me, was it possible to heal that level of grief? It didn't look like it was possible because every single thing seemed to be fighting against her. But I know that energy healing is a really powerful thing. So any of you guys that do energy healing, it's not something that is limited. It's as big as you can take it. Always have the intention for the person's greatest good, but you can get them to think about all this stuff because their soul will only get them to let go of what doesn't serve them. Because there are certain things we certainly wouldn't let go of if it's a thing that's getting you to search for more in life. And so those things will stay in place. But, because I believe your soul is in charge of the healing is going on anyway. But the stuff we carry so much baggage that we don't need to carry on that makes life more difficult. What else? Oh, the time was perfect. Maybe we should open up for questions. No questions. I could talk all night. No questions. I answered everything.
Allison, so are you proposing, I know these statistics, but are you proposing that people who have suffered a loss see a psychic medium?
Okay, so I would would definitely see a psychic medium, but B, I would say you need to go to someone who comes highly recommended. Okay? How the View is the name, not How the View. How the View is the area in Somerset West. But you need to go to someone who people have really had good results from, because there are some people they're not psychic mediums. Okay? The psychic medium is the one I see dead people. That's a very significant gift. So someone who can just see non-physical doesn't mean they're a psychic medium. Okay, so you get a clairvoyant, a clairsentient, clairaudient, but a psychic medium is something that's a very special gift. And they will tell you stuff that will absolutely put things to rest of why things happen. Because there were certain things that happened, like my husband and I had split up. I got sick and tired of hanging around a soccer field, and I said, you cannot stay all day in winter with the baby by a soccer field. So eventually I said, well, you're not taking me seriously, I'm leaving. This is my late husband. This happened in August. And he died in December. So of course it was a huge amount, like, oh my God, well, why did that have to happen? But the psychic medium said to me, your bond was too close. If that hadn't happened in order to kind of create a little bit of a gap, then the trauma of the loss would have been absolutely manifold. So I understand that certain things happen in that particular way. So psychic medium, definitely I highly recommend that you go and see. I don't care how long ago the loss was. Because if I talk to you for 5 minutes, you'll be crying about that loss, which means no matter what work you've done, if you still cry about the thing, it means you haven't dealt with the loss. Oh, that's the other thing I didn't tell you. So when you have the memory of the loss, or you see someone that looks like someone that triggers that memory, what happens is when your subconscious mind accesses the memory, it is like you have just lost that person right now. Like you have just got the news to say that they've gone. Okay, so we don't always know consciously that we've accessed it in that way, but that's the record that's playing in the background, the whole thing. So depression is when different people are being triggered around loss. People who are, they've broken your heart or whatever, and all those things are active in your subconscious mind as if you have experienced it right now. That's why depression is so debilitating. So you can't have all those things at the same time.
You mentioned earlier on that if you constantly have the loss and you keep on just putting it away, how do you eventually unlock that to overcome?
Well, first of all, it would be great to do a psychic medium thing, to understand why things happen as they did in connection with them, and then to tell you, I'm okay and I'm fine and you can carry on with your life. But energy healing can also help. So, and it doesn't mean you have to come to me. You can go to someone for energy healing and think about the loss when you're on the bed, so that you can release the charge relating to that. You see,
I find that I've just blocked it off. And I don't want to get close to anybody now.
Yes.
Because I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, and that's what the body's defense mechanism does straight away in order to keep safe. So energy healing can definitely help with that. You see, what happens is, in our energy field we have triggers that can be set off relating to different events in our life. So while there is that charge there, it can be triggered. With energy healing, the charge is removed. But in order for it to be removed, you have to be thinking about the thing. You know, you have to access that information in order to trigger it in your energy field. And then when it's taken out of the energy field, that trigger is no longer there, which means you can now remember the people. Oh, that was the other thing that they had said to me, was, because I didn't realize that I had shut anything down.
You keep on building walls.
Yes.
And it gets thicker and thicker and thicker.
Yes, because they said to me, how often do you speak with your late husband? So I said, come on, this is now 13 years down the line and I'm now in another marriage. They said, no, if we were asking you 6 months down the line, you'd be saying the same thing. So I said, what do you mean? And they said, so here's the moment of the shock of the news of the death. Here are all the memories. You are here. In order for you to access the memories, you've got to go through that real time as if they just died now. So your subconscious mind diverts you all the time so that you don't think about it. And then you think, I feel like I've lost the connection with that person because I never think about him. But it's because the pain of the loss is too great. So you don't just go accessing it without having something that can fix it. I wouldn't say go and keep on thinking about it. If it gets triggered because something else has happened in your life, then don't take things to stop it. Try and deal with the loss at the time. Do the crying, do the grieving that you do. If it gets too much, have a salt water bath. Try not to take medication if you possibly can. Hi.
Can you talk a little bit about soul contracts?
Yes. So the soul contracts, for example, with abortion or adoption, or any soul contracts, we know if we decide before we come here, will you do this for me? Will you be my mom? Or will you be caring, nurturing, and loving? So I remember to be like that in this lifetime. And will you be my dad? And will you be manipulating and controlling? So I remember not to be like that. There's no personal thing to the memory, but it might resonate with some people. And so you set up everybody. You would not be sitting in front of me today if there was not a soul contract that said, at this point in time, when you have written the book, I actually have written in the book that what a soul contract is I said I would write a book, and you said, would you make sure that it comes out at the time when I need to deal with the stuff related to the loss? Because to me, that's what a soul contract is. But even the people that break your heart, even the people that do bad things to you, that's all a soul contract for things that you needed to learn. When a catalyst happens in your life, you take a 90-degree turn. You don't always realize what's happened until you look back and you see, oh my gosh, how different is my life now, and yet that felt so bad when it started off. So for a child, a baby, that soul may only need to come in for 3 months, 6 months. The soul may need to just finish off something or have some experience, because it's still in physical manifestation, although it's not born. It may just need that amount of experience before it goes. Okay. Other times it can be because of the fact that some dynamic changes in the relationship of what that child will be coming into. So they can choose to withdraw because they're not going to get the experience that they needed, but that's why they will come back at a later stage. So the soul contracts are everybody you have anything to do with, from your maid, the street sweeper that you connect eyes with, the people that you walk past in the shopping centre. Every single bit of it is soul contracts that we set up beforehand, and we affect each other energetically. So let's say I've done this, and I've been there, done that, laid on the t-shirt, and survived. My energy field carries that. So now I walk into a shopping centre and I'm thinking, why is there such a long queue? I'm so irritated right now because I'm rushing for this and rushing for that. Meantime, the person behind me or next to me has just experienced a loss that they absolutely are not coping with, and they've decided they're going to join me. They can't take it anymore, they're going to end their life. In that short time of being within that space, we are energetically communicating with each other. Then her body gets, you know what, I'm going to be okay. And then she leaves here thinking, I don't know why I was so freaked out about that, but I think I'm going to be okay. You don't even have to verbalize anything. That's how much the soul contract thing is. So no two people, for me, sometimes when people are energy healers or whatever, if you do the same thing, people feel threatened by you because they think, oh, you could take clients away from me. Absolutely not. The soul contracts are so specific that if I was the only one doing what I was doing and you didn't have the soul contract to do the healing with me and there was nobody else, you wouldn't come to me. I mean, it's a very, very clear thing. When the people came from Healing Touch 2 years later, there were 18 people on that course that I had recommended to do the course. And they were like, are you crazy? Because you're taking all those people that would be coming to you. And I said, no, that's 18 more people that other people can go to if they couldn't come to me. Because if they were meant to come to me, they'll come to me regardless. So the soul contracts are very, very specific. And it's quite funny how sometimes we can get confused with soul contracts. Because I remember significant times in my life where it was a male, and I was thinking, I don't know what's going on here because I'm not into an affair, and the guy's 10 years younger than me, but I don't understand what this animation, Carolyn Mays calls it animation, because I only discovered that when I read the book. Luckily, all the people that I pulled away from, because I thought, you misread it if it's a man. I'm not gay, so if it's a woman, I'm not thinking, there should be a relationship there. Straight away I know there's obviously a soul connection going on here. But somehow when it was the opposite sex, I would think, I don't understand what's going on. But I mean, the guy gave me the book, The Hands of Light, to read, which is the one that put me on the journey of needing to be a healer. And so the soul contracts are very, very specific. And how you know is the animation that happens between you, good or bad. There is something that you are meant to be dealing with. Does that explain it?
I'm very nice because it sounds similar to what she calls the red flag theory.
Your what theory?
The red flag theory.
Oh, no.
It's the same kind of thing where before you come to it, you say, okay, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my dad.
Oh, I haven't read that book.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, but it is.
And
Because
you're
everybody,
doing each other's
it's
pieces.
always a two-way. Yeah, it's always a two-way. Yeah. Yes.
I've got two questions for you. One with the soul contracts. Is there any, in your experience or maybe knowledge that you've come across, that people have the choice not to fulfill their soul contract? And where does free will and choice come in if we have already predestined these contracts with other people?
We do have choice though. I remember this psychic medium that I went to, she was absolutely amazing because she had been put through a lot of experiences. Spirit had put her through a lot of experiences of how you die, like with drowning and burning, and she had every experience she went through as if she was going through it so that she could understand what that transition was and how every time, no matter how big the trauma, the body is unaffected, the soul is unaffected. But one of the things that she said, because I said, what happens with, because I had an issue that they judge and they don't let people go into a church who have committed suicide. And I said to her, so what is that about? So I said, so what if they keep on coming back and committing suicide over and over again? Because they say that if you commit suicide, they come straight back because you haven't finished. But she said, oh no, then the soul can actually choose not to come back and decide to learn that in a different way. So one can choose to go, okay, you have 5, they say about 5 opportunities to die. Many people had an opportunity or something major happen in their life that if they were a person that could commit suicide, then they would have thought about that. You know, because I mean, it was really traumatic to discover that my grandmother wasn't my mother and the sister from hell was actually my mother. So to me, that was a major trauma at 19. So a lot of people have a near-death or something that happens at 19. Then there's an age in the 20s, there's another age. So you have set up numerous times that you can check out if you choose to. But you can choose to stay. But you can choose not to, or to end a soul contract. The soul contract is you meant to learn a particular lesson. Okay, because there's no other reason for us to set up a soul contract. So if it's something that you just feel you cannot, you've tried everything, the other person is just not getting it, then you can choose to disconnect from them. We are powerful in our little universe. We have the power to create and destroy as God creates the universe. So you can choose what you want and what you don't want in your life. I remember I was working for Melissa Jolly at the time with Orasoma. I was working for her as a Girl Friday 4 mornings a week. But I sat her on all the courses. And I remember every time just when things seemed to be going fine, some major thing would happen. And I remember saying to her, I'm sick and tired of every time things seem to be calm, some major thing has to happen. She said, well, this is how you set it up. So you said, okay, I want to get to 100 steps. I want to climb 100 steps in this lifetime. So if I am getting all cozy with my linus blanket on the 3rd step, can you blow up the step so that I can happily reach for the next step? And so I remember being in the shower, and water amplifies energy, by the way, and I was on my own in the house, so I was screaming on top of my voice to tell the universe, I'm telling you now, I choose what I want in my life, and I'm no longer choosing to have to blow up the step. You just nudge me so I get the feeling change needs to happen, and I'll go running in that direction. So no blowing up the step. I have not had a blowing up of a step since.
And if you wanted to, in your, again, experience and knowledge, would you know if you want to find out what your sacred purpose is? What your sacred purpose is? Yes. What would be your advice?
Okay, so when you find out, even if you're 90 and then you discover, oh my gosh, now I know what my life purpose you are not going to look back in your life and think, oh my gosh, I missed the point completely. You're going to understand you've been doing it all the time unconsciously. You cannot not be on purpose. It's not possible. In order for us to function here as a soul, we are doing our soul's work. Sometimes we just may be too close to the stuff. It feels like we're in the muck, but we don't realize that in the bigger scheme of things, what's actually going on. And sometimes you're lucky enough for people to come up to you and say, I just want you to know how much you affected my life back in, and you didn't even know what you were doing back then. Yet you had an impact, the same as I've had people say things to me when I worked in telecom. I had no idea, I was part of our taskmaster, so I had no idea that people's lives were being influenced in a positive way because I was sticking my affirmations on my computers. And they would stick affirmations on their computer because they were obviously observing what was going on with me. But I had no idea it had an impact on me. And I wasn't doing the work that I'm doing now, but I had the same impact as I'm having now then. So when you find out what your life purpose is, it's not something you need to search for. It's already within. So what makes you happy? What makes you feel good about your life? That's what your life purpose is. And the way it unfolds is in different ways. It doesn't have to be in a presidential position, or it doesn't have to be a guru in a monastery, or well, that's a wrong combination. In an ashram. So, Freudian slip. But, so it's always on the purpose of that. I'm 100% sure. 100% sure.
I have a friend of mine who wants to come tonight. She's not well. And she asked me if I could ask you. She is terribly frightened of dying. And she's not well, and the outlook doesn't look.
Okay, you need to get the book for her called Heaven's Gift. It's the one of Jasper Strain. Because when I read that book, it's called Heaven's Gift. Gift, as in present gift, yeah. By Jasper Swain, or you may find it somewhere.
No, I read it 2 weeks ago. I put it in my house.
Good. Okay, that's why you've got the book, because she needs to read that. Because what happens there is and I've come across many stories of the same kind of thing when I was single and near-death experience things. That the soul is actually out the body before anything happens. No matter how traumatic the thing appears to people watching, and some people say, no, but I saw the body moving. That's just the body still. But if she reads that, she'll see the journey. Actually, there's another book, I've thought about this book for years, called The Testimony of Light by Helen Greaves.
That's when you said.
I brought it back into print, so I hope you can still get it. When did you not find it anymore?
I found about a year ago.
Okay. Just keep on ordering it on Amazon, they will bring it back into print. I managed to get a few books back into print because I refused to accept that it was no longer in print.
I just have Greaves.
Greaves. That's also local people, a nun and a person that worked in the church, and they were very connected. And the minute the nun died, she was getting the same telepathic messages as she did before. So it would be really good for her to see what happens on the other side and all that kind of stuff. She's got nothing to fear. Nothing to fear.
She is unconvinced.
Yeah. I need to talk to her. I need to chat with her.
What she needs to know.
I'll have tea.
What she needs to know.
Yeah, no, but you can come to peace with it beforehand, just the understanding.
And she wants to.
Because most people fear how they'll go. They don't realize that when we can tell her that no matter what, is she ill?
She has cancer. Yeah.
Okay, so no matter what happens, when it starts getting towards the end, they are more out of their body than in their body. So they're spending more time out, and they are aware of the fact that their loved ones that have crossed over are there, their guides,
She's
all that are there.
an experience where her mother and father were there. And, she's
So what is she really afraid of? The letting go of here?
control.
So that she can control, tell her she can still control it by choosing to go in a peaceful way. Tell her she can set a clear intention around it. And she's welcome to find out more than happy to change it.
If your soul makes choices, what happens with somebody who dies of violent
Okay, so the other soul contracts are.
Can you just say the question so we can hear it? I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry, she said so. Just say that again.
contract, how does that work if you die a violent death?
Okay, so basically you're saying if it's a really violent death, how is that soul contract? So there are soul contracts that are just me and you. Then there are soul contracts like a child that, when they had that child that needed a liver transplant and the whole country knew about it, and then they'd gone worldwide to try and get the child a liver, because I think she was 5 years old, this is from a long time ago. So that now has a bigger impact on the community. It's not just the immediate environment. People who die quietly, they just have a die in their sleep, or they just have a heart attack and die quietly. There's no major soul contract that they had to impact people. When it's something that's violent or something like that, it is impacting a bigger group of people. So there's a bigger soul contract going on there for people to learn how it's not okay to do that, not okay to be like that. But the soul is out of the body before any of the violence happens.
So they
don't experience anything of it. That's why, and some of the books like that book on the death of my son, how the boy died was they were driving back from Johannesburg to Durban, to Pietermaritzburg, and he was driving the car, and the next thing he saw this sedan overtake a car, and clearly he was going to hit the car. Next thing he knows, he's looking down, and he sees an accident, so he thinks he's dreaming. He sees the accident happen, it's a head-on collision, and when he goes down, he realizes, oh gosh, that's me. So he never had any part of the impact. Now, a story that I also have in the book, there's a friend of mine that I worked with in Telkom who didn't believe in all this funny stuff, and she let me put the story in the book, and she got knocked over. Now, she was walking across the road to the T-room. She looked, she saw the car coming, she knew she was going to be hit. She never got the impact, that's the last thing she remembers looking at. The next thing, she was out of her body, she did the whole white light thing. They told her, your time is not yet right, you need to go back. When she came back into the body, she was already in the ambulance. Now you've got to understand, how long a period is that? They've got to get the ambulance to get there. They've got to stabilize her before they put her in the ambulance. She never experienced any of that and came back into the body when she was in the ambulance. So the trauma, even if people have an accident, they're not normally in their body. But not everybody knows that they go to the white light. So I don't think people all remember what actually happens in that period of time. But very rarely is the soul impact or the soul in the body at the time when something like that happens. Most of the time people feel bad because of what everybody's saying they should be feeling. And that could have happened and this could have happened. That's what makes it traumatic. Not if they just came down, I try to get people to just get down to the bare bones. What was your actual experience? Because then it's not.
It wasn't an accident, it was that they had somebody torturing somebody.
The soul would be out of the body
While they were tortured.
while they're being tortured. It should not be an experience that should be had. So they wouldn't feel the full enormity of what's actually going on, even though their body would be reacting to it. But it would be, everybody affected by that is part of the soul contract to learn from that.
You pick the gratitude out and
Sorry?
pick up the gratitude.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There'll be so many levels of stuff and this, each person would get a completely different lesson from the same thing. They would see it in a completely different perspective.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
I had a friend who was beaten for 2 hours. She was 70, and she was beaten for 2 hours, and at Belgium. She was stabbed 67 times, and a painting was smashed over her face, and that kind of thing. And she was in ICU for 81 days before she died. But she was very calm throughout that time. She never spoke again because they had damaged her throat. But she was absolutely beautiful and calm. And I used to look at her and think, how do you manage to be this serene when you have that kind of stuff done to you?
That's proof of
Yeah,
the
and
fact.
that's why I wanted to share that with you. It was absolutely, she was completely beautiful.
And also, because in order for people to really take responsibility for old people and not just leave them and not pay attention to them, there was a huge message there of people need to care more. We need to care more about our people. We need to take care of different things and pay more attention. So not having all the regret afterwards, that could have been averted. All the thinking process that goes on around it is why it had to happen in that way. But she wouldn't have been in the body at the time that it happened.
In fact, I'm hijacking the talk.
No, that's fine.
She was part of a very small community in the Kurds, and the result of her death was that that whole community has come together and they protect each other, they fight for each other, and they all know each other.
How amazing is that so much?
And in fact, they have all said so many times, what a pity that she couldn't have lived to have enjoyed that embraced the coloured community in the area, they're taking care of the children. And it was all of
that was the purpose of why it happened, like the Amy Beale story. It's exactly the same thing. They would not have a white person in a black community doing the work that the mom is doing with open arms. We wouldn't be able to just go in there, even though we mean well, they don't trust us. But because of what had happened with the daughter, the mom is doing amazing work. You know, I look at that and think, man, I love it when plan comes together. So she only needed to be here those 18 years. Amy didn't need it to be longer. The dad clearly didn't deal with it because he died of lung cancer within 3 years, and that's non-forgiveness and resentment and all that kind of thing. So he obviously couldn't cope with it. But the mom's work has gone ahead amazingly.
Do you think why does the soul need to leave the body? Because the body is going through all the pain, but the soul is here to learn certain lessons. So why does it have to leave, or why
well,
does
the
it?
lessons are not the soul needing to learn. Our souls are masters on that side. We come to play this game of life, and how much can we bring of our spiritual understanding into our physical world, and how much compassion and understanding can we have with people. So the soul is not damaged in any of that. It's an experience. The experience is not even really, well, it is for the body, but it's more for the people observing what's happening. So the soul doesn't get damaged or affected in any way.
Why does what I'm saying is, why does it have to leave? If it can't feel pain in any event, why does it have to exit? Or why does it exit?
It exits so it doesn't feel it, so it's not impacted on the soul. If the soul is in the the soul would be affected by that. That's why it observes it from above. Every time, even the people that you speak to, a lot of people don't speak to us, communities wouldn't be open to it. But most of them will say, well, I was watching as the whole thing happened, and then realize, oh geez, that's me. Whether it's a rape or whatever the case may be. The girl that was raped in Durban, I knew her, where they started the Jessica, she's married now. She grew up in my house with my niece and her were best friends, so every time they came to my house, I saw she was a quiet, timid girl. And she said all she remembers of the 5 guys raping or 4 guys raping was, please don't let them hurt my dogs and hurt my dad. Please don't let them. She never experienced anything of the rape. And yet 4 men raped her. You know? But the work that she's doing now, I mean, she speaks, she does amazing, amazing work of helping and counseling and all that kind of stuff. And I look at her and I think, man, her life purpose was flipping amazing. It had to be through the process of what the catalyst was in order for it to be as impactful. Because unfortunately, and I really did decide, that was one of the things I decided, because all the big names in this field like the Louise Hayes and all that, they've all had cancer that they've survived, and I decided I am not having that as part of my experience. I'm just spiritual, I can deal with loss, but I'm not having some major health crisis to say I survived. So forget about it. I chose to definitely not have that. Whether I had chosen that before I came, I don't know. But I just decided I'm definitely not having that. Like Abraham says, not in my heart.
Not in my
Palm. Yeah. Okay. Any main question? What do you want to say? Sorry.
How did you make that decision? How did you make that solid decision in this like to, no more going on the step? No, I'm not going to do the cancer thing. Sorry, I've done everything else. I'm not doing that. That's what I want to do.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you the Abraham analogy quickly because I see I have to finish. So Abraham says, this is the teachings of Abraham, of Esther and Jerry Hicks. Love the word. Nothing that they talk about jars me, so I think they might be channeling God, honestly, because it's just, the information is just too amazing. And so Abraham says that this life is a buffet. It's a kitchen, we've got the kitchen, and we can choose whatever ingredients we want in our pie. So we create our reality, we create our pie, and we can choose what we want in our pie and what we don't want. So if you don't want chilies in your pie, just don't put chilies in your pie. And they say we don't understand our human friends because you'll say, I don't want the chili in the pie, I don't want the chili in the pie, until you bump the chili in the pie, because if you focus on it, where focus goes, energy flows. So you draw that experience in. But if you just decide, I'm not going to have chili in my pie, then that's all your resistance. And then people also say, but I don't want it in the kitchen. And they say, but someone else may need a hijacking because of whatever experience they need to have. So the chili cannot not be in the kitchen. Just don't choose to put it in your pie. And so the way that they say it is to say, when you hear of a situation happening and it has an effect on you, not in my pie. So I say it exactly like that, not in my pie. And when you speak like that, you are speaking the truth for yourself.
But you find out people who have really, really desire from the deepest part of themselves not to have certain things in their pie. But they have those things in their pie.
Well, that's the don't want the chili, they don't want the chili,
like
addictions.
Like addictions and so on.
Well, that's
Fight not to have
but what are their soul contracts? What are their life experience supposed to be? And who are the people they're supposed to impact? And it's also, I do clearing of sabotaging subconscious beliefs. I've had people give up drug addiction, sex addiction, all kinds of stuff. It's a very, very powerful technique for clearing it. But it's not something, I don't believe in going in and fixing anybody. They must decide, I've had enough of this, I do not want to carry on this way anymore. Because we don't know what the purpose of the experience is. Eric Poole used such a good analogy where he said, when you are scuba diving and a fish's scales are all up, what does that mean? It means the fish needs more oxygen. So you come along and you think, oh, you don't look right, fishy, so I'm going to flatten you down. Next thing is floating dead on the top of the water. Because we don't know what the purpose is for the experience the person's going through. If the person's a drug addict, why do they need to be taking the drugs? What are they needing to numb out? What's going on with them that makes them need to do that? Abraham has no judgment about that. It's quite amazing. Because the girl said, I've tried everything and I can really be strong someone, but there's certain times. And Abraham says, the reason people have the addictions like drug addiction and alcohol addiction is because in that space, when they're numbed out, they feel closest to God. You know, there's no other things affected, they're in that zone. And he said, if you find another way to feel close to God, or to feel connected, he uses the term connected. If you find another way to do that, there will no longer be the need for the addiction.
I don't know, it feels like it doesn't sit well with me. So a person, if somebody is doing something bad to somebody else, is it in their soul contract to do that bad thing? And then for them, how does the soul benefit?
Look at the other person who's been done to. The soul contract is for them to say, you do this for me so I can learn to stand up for myself.
So, but how can the person that's doing it, how can they ever benefit, or how can the soul benefit from doing something
Well, it's
evil?
interesting. There's a wonderful children's story. This is my version of it though, but it's the Neil Donald Walsh children's story about the little son. And this little son goes to God and says, God, what am I? Light. What am I? He says, you're a light. Well, what do I do? He says, you shine. But how do I know I shine? That's just who you are. So he goes away and he comes back and says, God, what's forgiveness? And he said, well, forgiveness is when someone has done something bad to you and then you ask for forgiveness. So how do I experience that? So God says, well, you've got to find someone who's prepared to do something bad to you in order for you to be able to forgive, to experience forgiveness. So another light who hears all this confusion comes up and says, because I love you so much and you really want this experience, I will come down to earth and do this for you. But should I forget that I'm alive too, will you remind me? And we kind of like off with their head, you know, we never see it in that way. And I mean, I have this perspective. It doesn't mean that I don't get mad, and I still get really mad at the people that die. And experience that I had, but I bounce back quicker because of my understanding. So if someone has things being done to them, they are meant to learn to stand up for their own, stand up on their own 2 feet and be able to stop that person from doing that. The minute the soul contract is complete, the people don't need to behave the way that they behave. So if one looks at, okay, so why would I have chosen that person to be in my life doing that right now? Think about your friend. Why would that be happening? What would be the lesson she wanted to learn from this?
Well, what if she died? Then how does that soul contract,
She died?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the soul contract with you? Because you're the one that's impacted. There was a lesson to be learned. You would never allow yourself to be in the same situation that she was in. Am I right? Because everybody that's impacted around that person for whatever, because nobody can die before their time. Nobody. And so the ones that choose to go in a particular way, everybody that observes that learns something from that lesson. And they're not easy. They're not easy lessons to learn. I'm sorry for you. Any other questions?
Could you comment on the relationship between the soul and the subconscious mind?
The subconscious mind is more, it's connected with the functioning of the body, because without the subconscious mind we wouldn't be able to survive. If we had to think about each of the things that our body should be doing, like the cells duplicating and this happening and the hair growing and this going, so this cell must duplicate there and that one must duplicate there at a different time, we would die because we can't think in that way. But the subconscious mind is the thing that runs the whole show. So, there are certain things that are impressed on the subconscious mind. They say they reckon all our patterns are up to age 8. Because there were no filters, so there was nothing to stop information from going straight through. So there wasn't a rationale to be able to think, no, that's not right, I'm getting an incorrect conclusion by that. So those programs that go into the subconscious mind and how they function for our lives is the way the soul is able to experience things in a particular way. Because everything would unfold the way it's supposed to in order for us to learn what we need to learn. There is choice involved. I mean, there's definitely choice involved. But the way things play out and unfold, there's certain things that need to be in play at the beginning. Because if we all arrived and everything was just hunky-dory, why would we need to be searching or doing anything? We may as well be on the other side. We're meant to experience the variety of life in all its different forms and overcome the things that are challenging for us. Because one person's challenge for someone else is nothing. So the soul is completely involved, but the subconscious mind is the thing that keeps us functioning here. And it's not always coming from a place. It thinks it's helping you to survive, and sometimes the misinformation is actually causing it to work against you.
Sorry. 20.
Just catch it. Thank you so much, Allison. I'm sure you brought a lot of comfort to a lot of people here. And I think the message that we are souls, having a physical experience, even if that physical experience is dead, is certainly what I get from this. That we continue, and our loved ones are still there, and the love is still there, and they're still watching our lives. Yeah. Thank you. So, everybody, if you want to
ask one question, do you still get the feeling that Ian's watching everything?
Oh yes. Our latest sign, the last sign I got from him that was very blatant, was my granddaughter was born, and on that day it was very emotional. It was his first grandchild. And all I could think of, so does my gran and does Ian know that our baby's had a baby? And that night I was very emotional the whole day, and I hadn't watched the one program of the Long Island Medium, and I put it on, and it was the father speaking to the son, and the son was about 28, and the father had died when he was 2, so it got my attention. And the dad was saying, I know everything that's happened in your life right up till now. I know about the children, so I got my answer there. So I still get the son. I ask for sons all the time. And they, I mean, we're not meant to keep them bound by us all the time, but absolutely, and this is 29 years down the line.
And they can go on into other lives and do that next spiritual growth and still be around.
Still a soul connection.
They can still connect and stay connected.
That's a whole other topic.
I'm not learning this one.
Big stuff, right? Okay,